Good evening. My name is Tina Sursted, and I'm a member of the League of Women Voters, Dakota County, and I would like to welcome you to the candidate forum this evening. A couple of household items. Please make sure to silence your cell phones. The restrooms are outside the doors to the left and to the right. And if you wish to submit a question for the candidates, you may do so on the cards that our ushers will be handing out. Just let them know by raising your hand and they'll find you. This forum is co-sponsored by the American Association of University Women Hastings Branch. The American Association of University Women was officially founded in 1881 and is a nonprofit organization that advances equity for women and girls through advocacy, education, and research. As always at our events, we want to remind you that the League of Women Voters Dakota County is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences policies through education and advocacy. And now I would like to introduce our moderator, Debbie McNeil. Debbie has been a member of League of Women Voters Edina for over 20 years, and we're honored to have Debbie moderating our forum tonight.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening and welcome. Thanks to the City of Hastings and Hastings Middle School for the use of this facility this evening, and thanks to Hastings Community Television for their willingness to broadcast and record this event. Thanks also to the American Association of University Women Hastings Branch for co-hosting the forum. Audience, we ask you to be quiet and respectful through the event, to not clap in response to any candidate's answer. We'll have a chance to do that for all candidates at the end. And I also want you all to know that the League of Women Voters does not endorse any candidates for office or political parties, so the views expressed at this forum will be those of the candidates and not those of the League of Women Voters. Here's the format for tonight's event. The candidates will each have 2 minutes for their opening remarks, and then they will each have 1 minute to respond to each question. And the order in which you answer questions, candidates, will rotate so that each person has an opportunity to answer in a different order. All questions submitted by email were reviewed and edited by a committee of League members. And questions submitted by the audience tonight will be reviewed by our question facilitators, who are Jan Hertel, Lindy Gassman, and Pat Powers, sitting up in front here. Our timers are Tina Surstad and Christina Clark. And timers, I'd like you to hold up, they're going to time your answers, candidates. I'd like you to hold up your 30 seconds left sign, your 15 seconds remaining sign, and your stop sign. And candidates, I'd like you to please respect the stop sign. That's the way we'll be able to answer the most questions tonight. You'll also, candidates, have 1 minute at the end of the forum for a closing statement, and the forum will conclude at 8:30 p.m. The election for positions for the Independent School District 200 School Board is for 4 positions. The candidates are Becky Beisel, Brian Davis, Jessica Gelhar, Robert Hallberg, Lisa Hedin, Stephanie Malm, Melanie Peters, and Andrew Trimbleth. Let's get to opening statements right away. I think we'll just go right down the line for the openings, and we'll start with Becky Beisel. Your opening, please. This is each for 2 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Becky Beisel. As a lifelong resident of Hastings community and a 1998 Hastings High School graduate, I have a vested interest in the community we live in. I married Chad Beisel in 2004, who is a 1997 Hastings High School graduate, and we have 3 amazing children who are currently enrolled within the Hastings High School District. Blake is 14, he's an 8th grader at the middle school. Trey is 12, a 6th grader at the middle school, and our daughter Ellie is 6, and she's a 1st grader at McAuliffe Elementary. My children are very active in multiple sports and activities within our community. When I'm not driving them to all their activities and volunteering at their events, I work as a critical care cath lab nurse in St. Paul. I graduated from the College of St. Catherine in 2004 with a Bachelor of Science degree in nursing and have been employed as a registered nurse in St. Paul for the last 14 years. As a registered nurse, I regularly deal with diversity, stressful, and unpredictable situations. I am challenged every day with complex critical thinking and decision-making while working together as a team. I feel these are valuable attributes I will bring as a school board member. I am a passionate, strong, and determined person. I intend to speak up and ask questions in order to make informed decisions. I value our public school system, and I want to serve the families and students in our Hastings community. Giving back to the district that I grew up in and getting involved in the education of our school district is one of the many reasons I chose to run for our school board. My first priority as a school board member will be to assist in the hiring process of a new superintendent. I feel the hiring of a new superintendent is one of the most important and critical tasks the school board will be challenged with. It is a big job for new members and the current board members, but working together as a team with staff and the community, we can evaluate our candidates and choose the right leader for our district. I would also like to see increased community and staff involvement in our school board meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian Davis.
Hello. Thank you all the audience for taking the time to be here, and thank you to League of Women Voters Dakota County for hosting this forum. I am running for school board for a variety of reasons, amongst those being a passion for children and their growth. I see no fewer than 600 children and their families per year, and I have heard from them the joys but also disappointments that they have personally experienced. Some of my priorities are working and looking at where we are with STEM, security in terms of threat assessments within our schools, bullying in terms of where we are with that, respect for all, mental health resources for students and their outcomes, collaborations with our educators, which I think is very key for us to work all together as one cohesive body for the betterment of the children. Budgets, in terms of what our priorities are going to be. Where should our taxpayer dollars go, and what are the most important things for our kids? Standardized test scores, making sure we keep those scores as high as humanly possible, and that we are a standard for the city of Hastings and for the state. Parent engagement, how are we engaging our parents? The most important thing in the world is the parent engagement and how they work with their children and work with educators. I spent 5 years as a member of Site Council for Highland Park Elementary Schools in St. Paul. In my role, I worked with other council members on curriculum, facilities, disciplinary policies, and programming. In my current role, I work with children and families using sports as a developmental tool for children to help them thrive. I hold an MBA in Finance and Information Systems and a BA in Economics and Political Science. I have 2 children, a son who graduated last year from the high school, and a daughter who is a sophomore. My wife is a teacher at the high school for the last 11 years. And again, thank you all for being here.
Thank you. Jessica Gelhar.
Thanks so much. Hi, everyone. First and foremost, thanks for coming and thanks for hosting this forum. My name is Jessica Gelhar. A little bit about me, born and raised here in Hastings. I graduated from the class of 2005, did a short stint over to Wisconsin where I attended the University of Wisconsin Stout, played women's lacrosse, actually formed their team and graduated from there and came back. Shortly after graduation, I married my husband, Pat, who is also a Hastings native. We knew Hastings was always a place that we wanted to come back to. It had that small town feel, and it gave us that proximity yet to all those destinations that we seek. So we knew Hastings was a place that we wanted to call home. And 2 kids, 2 dogs, and a house built later, we're still here in Hastings. My decision to run is really based on, number one, the passion that I have for our community and the people that live within it. Over the last several years, I've sought lots of opportunities to extend myself and help and volunteer with those around me. I really thrive in a collaborative environment, and I enjoy working with people to drive forward positive change. With that, I really do pride myself on being an authentic leader, both at home and in the office. I currently work at Thomson Reuters and have lived there now, lived there. Kind of feels that way sometimes, but I have been there for 9 years now in various leadership positions, and I really feel that experience has provided me with a well-rounded position to a multifaceted business, right, which requires consistent cross-functional collaboration with various groups on a global level. So I want to take those types of experiences and learnings and bring them into the school board. And then two, just the betterment of our schools, our children, and our community. And really when I think about, in short, why I'm running for board and what I want to bring, my family's my reason, the community's my drive, and the people are my passion.
Thank you. Robert Hallberg.
Right on time. You couldn't have done that better. Good evening, everyone. How we doing? First off, thank you very much to the League of Women Voters for hosting this event, as well as the AAUW, HCTV for filming this for those that might be watching at home. My reason for running for school board really came about in the fact that it was time for me to really get involved in the community. My wife and I got married in 2010. We moved back here because we wanted to raise a family here. I'm a class of 98 graduate, just like Becky. Go 98. And when I was in school, I loved the feeling and the environment that we had in our schools. And my oldest daughter is 15, and I listen to some of the stories that she tells me when she comes home. And I worry that we've lost some of that community feel and that excitement about our students and our teachers. And I look at my 7-year-old, my little second grader, and I want her to experience the things that I did as well. So one of the things that really concerns me is the declining enrollment in Hastings. And there's a number of reasons behind it. But one of the biggest things that I think that we as a community have really failed upon is coming up with a plan other than we just need to get more affordable housing. Affordable housing is going to be the end-all be-all. It's not. There are a lot of things that we can do, but we need to work together as a community. I believe that the school board should work with the city council, the Chamber of Commerce, to really come up with a plan to drive the next 5, 10, 15 years in our community. I worry about the mental health in our schools, not just for our students, but also our teachers as well. And I want to make sure that our teachers are well supported, not only in terms of educational, but also for their own mental health and well-being. So those are a few of the reasons why I'm running for school board. And again, thank you very much for being here tonight, and look forward to talking to you all.
Thank you. Lisa Hedin.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Hedin, and I am a candidate for the Hastings School Board. Thank you to everybody for participating tonight, both our event sponsors, our filming crew, and all of the attendants who are just taking the time and showing the personal interest in getting educated about this election and the candidates that are going to serve you so very close to home. I have 2 children in the Hastings district. They're in the high school now. They've been in the district since early childhood. And I'm a civil engineer, and I worked for 19 years as a hydraulic engineer, project manager, and senior administrator for the St. Paul District Army Corps of Engineers. For the last 15 years, I've been a stay-at-home parent and a very active community member. I've volunteered with and held leadership roles in many organizations within Hastings. I'm in my 2nd term on the Hastings School Board, and I'm currently vice chair. During my time on that board, I've served on virtually every committee, sat on numerous selection panels, adopted and overseen annual budgets, negotiated with union and non-union bargaining groups, participated in public meetings dealing with everything from budgetary issues to elementary school realignment boundaries. I've successfully advocated for 2 voter-approved levies and a $49.5 million bond. Over the next 4 years, the issues that I see in front of the school board and that I would be excited to be a part of are to select an experienced, financially responsible, relationship-oriented, diversity-conscious educational leader and put that person in a position of a superintendent. I'd like us to maintain a strategic awareness about external pressures on public education. These things are the increased focus, and I'd like us to be strong in them. These are an increased focus on technical and trades curriculum, the potential for a mandatory 4-year-old educational program, and upcoming state and federal funding concerns, with regard to special education. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie Malm.
Thank you, League of Women Voters and the AAUW, for putting this together. And thank you to everyone who took the time out of their evening here to join us in this forum, and to those that are watching from their homes. Your interest and involvement is imperative to the success of Hastings Public Schools. I am Stephanie Malm. I am married to JT Malm, and together we have 2 children, Emery and Omen. Both of them go to Kennedy Elementary. My choice to run was prompted in discussions throughout the last couple years with friends and individuals in the community. I decided to run this year because I was encouraged to do so, and in these discussions, we collectively identified a need for transparency, accountability, and a voice for our students, educators, and the taxpayers. It's the learner and you, the community, that influenced my desire to run for school board. I've dedicated my adult life to civil service, and being a board member is another way that I can utilize my skills to give back to the community. I'm finishing my Master's of Business Administration at Syracuse this year. I have an undergraduate degree in business administration with an emphasis in leadership. On top of my education, I have 15 plus years experience in leadership and management roles, writing and implementing policy, and being an advocate for organizations and individuals. I currently work as a senior paralegal for the Minnesota Army National Guard. I'm a veteran, and I am going on 15 years of service. I still wear the uniform. And my focus is primarily on administrative investigations, criminal law, and assisting leadership as they make tough decisions and time-sensitive decisions. I'm well-versed in federal and state law, negotiations, and handling confidential information. My priorities are definitely big picture at this point. Safety is always a concern. Mental, physical, and emotional well-being, not just for our students, but for our teachers, our educators. And I want to be able to provide the resources that promote that resiliency. Thank you.
Thank you. Melanie Peters.
Hi, I'm Melanie Peters, and like everyone, I want to thank everyone for being here tonight and for the League of Women Voters for hosting this event. There are a couple of key reasons why I'm running for school board. The first and foremost, and above all, I really believe in public education and the power of public education. This includes equitable access to opportunities and programming for all populations of students. Our investment in education will help our youth become the positive leaders, innovators, and contributors to society that we need them to be. I believe that the Hastings community as a whole is very engaged in education of our youth, and they've demonstrated that by, well, with all of you attending tonight, but also in the support of the recent referendums. As someone who cares about public education, I want to be part of maintaining that positive relationship with the community, and for those who are feeling like they don't have a positive relationship with the schools, I'd like to be part of building that. Our district is about to experience a time of change with Superintendent Collins retiring, and through my experience and understanding of the needs of and challenges of school districts, I feel like I can be a valuable member of a board that will select the new leader that will take us into the future. I am a licensed K-6 teacher. For the past 19 years, I've been a teacher and program manager at Starbase, Minnesota, which is a Department of Defense program where I teach STEM. Through this position, I've had the opportunity to work with thousands of students across the 7 metro districts, including Minneapolis and St. Paul. Through this experience, I've developed an understanding in the needs of all types of students and the common challenges teachers and districts face. I've also had the opportunity to serve as council member and mayor of the city of New Trier. So I know what it's like to represent my own community and make decisions that impact my neighbors.
Thank you. Andrew Trimbath.
Well, just like all my fellow candidates here, I really want to thank the League of Women Voters for getting this together and hosting this event. It's great to see this level of community engagement. My name's Andrew Trimbath, and when I think about the reasons I'm running, I can't help but think with my children. I have 2 young sons, 4 and 2, and 2 more children on the way. All 4 of them will be Hastings graduates. Both my wife and I are Hastings graduates. We were living in Shakopee when my first son was born, and we knew we needed to come back to Hastings because that's where we belonged, and that's where we wanted to raise our children. Now, school wasn't always the best thing for me. When I was 7 years old, I was diagnosed with ADHD, and I went on IEP, which I stayed on until I graduated from high school. It was a struggle. It wasn't always easy. When I think about how I got to where I am and the successes I've had in my life, I think about the people that work in this building, I think about the people that work in the high school, and I think about the people that work at our elementary schools and the support they showed me and the extra time they took with me to help me succeed. After graduating high school, I was able to attain a bachelor's degree in law enforcement from Minnesota State University, Mankato. Since then, I've been working in the public sector for 7 years, both in the corrections and human service field. So when I think about why I ran, I think about the support those individuals gave me and that I want to come back and give that support to them, ensuring that they're working in a positive workplace so that they can support the students that we have coming in today and the students we have graduating this year the same way I was supported so they can find success. Another thing I always look for is creating a trust and transparent community with our local residents here, making sure that we have a positive relationship with them and a relationship that's based on them being able to communicate with us. Along with that, I really think that it's important that we're pushing our youth towards high demand fields, getting them into careers and paths that are going to make them successful adults and allow them to flourish. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates, for your opening remarks. Now we're going to go to questions with 1-minute answers each. And we're going to mix it up, and I see that there's only one microphone. So 2 microphones. Oh, good. Okay. Okay, so here's what we'll do. I'll tell you the first 2 people who will answer, and then the next 2. And timers, if you would give the candidates after the first 2 time to get the mic before you start the timer, that would be great. Okay, here's the first question, and it will go to Jessica Gelhar and then Lisa Hedin. So if they want to have the mics. The question, and everyone will have a chance to answer this question. So Jessica Gelhar first. Here's the question. What are 2 or 3 strengths of which this school district can be proud, and why? And you'll see that the league is putting the questions also on the PowerPoint, so you can see them. Let's start with Jessica Gelhar. Do you have the mic?
Yep, I have the mic.
Okay, go ahead for 1 minute.
So first and foremost, one thing is really the extracurriculars that we offer within our school. When you look at it from athletics all the way through to academics, there's a lot of different offerings that students can be involved in. So I absolutely think that's a strength that we provide, that opportunity for our students and for our teachers to be involved within that space. I also feel that a strength we have is the passion, and it's the passion of the people that educate our children and that work within our school districts. And I really think that we need to look to them for direction as we build out initiatives from our school. They're the closest to our kids. We should have conversations with them, and we should consistently be engaging with them. And I also think that passion resides with a forward look into the future. The passion that they bring wants to see that big picture and wants to increase enrollments and wants to make it a positive, trusting environment for our students as well as our parents. So those would be the 3 strengths that I think our district has today.
Lisa Hedin, and then after Lisa will be Robert Hallberg. Lisa Hedin, what are 2 or 3 strengths of which the district can be proud?
Thank you. I'm going to find it hard to limit that to 2 or 3, but I'm going to take big swooping strengths at it, or sweeps at it. The first is our academics, and it's the range of our academics, and it's the focus on continuous improvement. We have a very high graduation rate at our high school. We have a very strong technical department at our high school. We have very strong AP and college in the schools. We have an amazing art program running all the way from elementary school choirs all the way up through ceramics and sculpture and photography at the high school. We're meeting kids where they need to be, and we're continuously improving and looking to add things like coding and add things like Avid. And then the other thing is the strength of our community and the local support, the engagement through referendums, the engagement through community partners like the Hastings Public Schools Foundation, the United Way of Hastings. We work together as a community to support our students, their social and emotional needs, and provide them academic success opportunities.
Robert Hallberg, and then following Robert, Andrew Trimblath.
For me, I think a couple of our biggest strengths are, number one, our teachers. We have an incredibly dedicated group of educators that understand that education goes beyond the classroom. They care about the students that we have. They're invested in their lives, both inside and outside the classrooms. We have an incredible community that steps up time and time again to support not just the students, but the teachers, the facilities, at all. With having such a tight-knit community, or such a strong, supportive community, I really would love for that community to step forward even more so and attending school board meetings and having a voice and showing just how much they do care and really making sure that the pressure is on the school board to be transparent in everything, all of its dealings, and understand that they want the best for the kids as well.
Andrew Trimbath, and following Andrew, Stephanie Malm.
So when I think about the strengths of our school district, I think I'm going to echo some of my fellow candidates here when I say community involvement. I think about a community that voted to improve a football field that is literally the cornerstone of this town, right in the center of town. You can't miss it if you drive through us. And that really shows how invested they are in this school, along with passing numerous bonds and levies in the past years. And the other thing I think about is the conversations I've had with district staff, whether it be teacher or a janitor or whatever it may be, and their passion and commitment to, creating memories and creating a positive educational experience for our students is unparalleled, in my opinion. And their passion really, kind of excites me in wanting to be involved in that and help foster that in a stronger way. And then I also think if you look, from a financial standpoint, this school district is in really good standing. We're in a very good place to continue to provide education.
Stephanie Malm, and following Stephanie, Brian Davis.
Excuse me. Budgeting. We've done an excellent job, I think, in relationship to, and I hate to compare one district to another, but I think we are doing very well regarding our financial situation. I want to kind of piggyback on what Lisa had said too. Innovative curriculum. I am continuously amazed with what my 8- and 6-year-old come home with, learning coding, learning, different ways through play too, which is something that I know I did not receive growing up. So it's really invigorating, and I see the energy that they come home with, and that is awesome. I think that our teachers do a fantastic job of getting them motivated and to learn, and I think that is so phenomenal. And again, with the community involvement on all levels, it is fantastic to see parents and staff members very involved with their children's education.
Brian Davis, and then Becky Beisel.
So one of the things that, first of all, it just goes to show you how many different things that we can be proud of. I mean, I'm 6th, 7th down the list, and you haven't heard many repeats. That's awesome. It just shows how awesome we are and what we're doing here. One of the things that I like to identify is families. I think that one of our strengths in this community is the families. The families, I see a lot of them all the time at the Y, and they are so invested in their children, and they're so invested in what's best for them. And that's one of the strengths that I notice each and every day that I go to work, and I'm most proud of. We have a great support for our music programs here. Incredible support for the music programs and what everyone's doing there, whether it be band, orchestra, show choir, whatever it happens to be. Third, I like the idea of the test scores and how high they are. Our standardized test scores are always very, very high, and we continue to keep them high. Something else to be proud of. So you have your academics, you have your music, and you have the strengths of the families. Those are what I think 3 of them are.
Becky Beisel, and then Melanie Peters.
Our early childhood development program is amazing. Starting our children off young, getting them into the programs, getting the special needs that they desire at the young age is just simply amazing to see. Then when they come into our school districts, they already have the preschool, all the extra learning that they've needed before they come into the schools. And then when they come into these schools, these teachers and the staff are so passionate and positive with our children. That is something to be so proud of. They are with our children more hours in a day than I am. So there's something to be so proud of that with the staff, everybody. They are passionate, positive. My children they've come home and have never said anything negative about a teacher. They've just loved every single bit of this school. And again, our community, families, parents, none of this would happen without the community and the staff and families, everybody we live with here. It's just amazing here.
Melanie Peters.
This is a tough one to go last for because so many of the great things about Hastings have already been shared. I do definitely agree that we're in great financial position as a district, and I think that's an important thing to continue to maintain. One of the things that I find very positive about our district is if you go to the Education Minnesota website and look at the school report cards, one of the pieces of data in that school report card is related to surveys that students take. And in those surveys, the Hastings students, they indicate that they feel safe at school. They indicate that their teachers care about them and care about their education. They also indicate that they feel that rules are fair. And they have a high number of students indicating that they are ready to learn each day. And I don't think that we would have students saying this on a survey if it weren't for the collective effort of everyone who is playing a role in the district.
Thank you for answering the first question. Here's the next question, in which we'll start with Lisa Hedin and followed by Jessica Gelhar. With all the normal responsibilities that most adults have, like job and children and spouses, what would you consider to be the one thing that tipped the scales for you to commit yourself to running for school board? Let's start with Lisa Hedin.
Thank you. That is a terrific question. And I'm not pandering to whoever came up with it, because I think it's easy to underestimate the commitment that I personally feel like it requires to be on the school board. But the reason that I did it and the reason that I made my first run 10 years ago was a personal valued commitment and a lifelong commitment to public service. I've always worked in the public sector, worked for a city as an engineering tech. I worked for the federal government as a civil engineer up to a senior administrator, and I've served on the board, and I'm an active volunteer. I grew up in a family where people volunteer. I grew up in a family where people serve. I followed my dad to refereeing clinics for soccer because that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to teach that, and he taught me that it was about service and about passion and about sharing, and that's the value. I think it's so important. It's so important, the educational experience that we give our kids, and it's easy to make a commitment of that time for me.
Jessica Gelhar, followed by Andrew Trimblath.
All right, so for me, if I wasn't being honest, I would tell you that that's one thing that I thought about, right? The time commitment that this was going to be. And for me, at the end of the day, it was the passion to better those around me. I thoroughly feel invigorated when I have the opportunity to meet and connect with people and hear their story and take their feedback and make that be part of our long-term journey together. So that was the thing that tipped it for me. It was the connectivity and the opportunity to really align with my passions in this space. Obviously, our children are very important to me. And I mentioned earlier, the community is a place that I have come back to, and I know that I'm going to remain here forever. So the connectivity, my passion for people, and my desire to support those around me are really what tipped the scales. And we always juggle it all one way or another, right? If we want to do it, we'll make it work. So.
Andrew Trimbath, followed by Melanie Peters.
When I think about tipping point, I actually don't know if I have an exact moment. I always knew I wanted to be heavily involved in our community. I always knew I wanted to give back to our youth and be part of our educational system and, just help out in any way I can. Prior to living in Hastings, I was already helping out with a different community coaching. The moment I got back, I started coaching again, got involved in my church, got on the outreach committee, and this was just a natural progression for me, and that it's a commitment I made to myself a long time ago to give back, especially to our youth. And I think, as some of my fellow candidates have alluded to, is this is a time commitment. Starting in February, I'm going to have 4 kids under the age of 5, which is going to be a wild ride. But also, I take those 4 kids and I look at those as my motivation for why I'm doing this. I want the best possible community for them to grow up in. and I want them to have that support and that guidance that I had, so that's why.
Melanie Peters, followed by Becky Beisel.
When I had the experience of serving my community as a council member and Mayor Nutrier, I really found that I loved public service and I loved serving my community. I also really love my job. I love being an educator, and the tipping point for me was actually a conversation with the fellow teachers that I work with when we were discussing the positive impact that we try to have on the teachers around us, and how that impact can cascade to all of the classrooms that and all of their students that they serve. And I kind of felt not guilty, but wish that I could do more for my own community in Hastings as being an educator. So that was the real tipping point for me, was just that conversation about the importance of, helping teachers do the best job that they can and wanting to contribute to my own community in that way.
Becky Beisel, followed by Robert Hallberg.
The tipping point for me is my children. They're my main priority. I will do anything for them. I'm a committed person. Again, committed to this community. I wanted to give away, reason to give back to this community that I grew up in. I'm passionate about the public schools, and I wanted a reason to give back. And I wanted to be involved more in my children's education. And I thought this is a great way to get in there, have a voice for myself, the community, the teachers, staff, and my children, and the children in the district. I find time for everybody, just like we're all busy people, and I just thought this is a great opportunity for my children, the community's children, and the future children of the Hastings.
Robert Hallberg, followed by Stephanie Malm.
The tipping point for me really was the fact that I spent 15 long years in the restaurant business doing management and restaurant design and development. And those were 14 to 16-hour days, and that was a good day. And I missed out on a lot of things with my oldest. And I think of my dad, who was so involved with sports when I was growing up, supporting me in the arts, supporting me however. And when I had the opportunity to leave the restaurant business and go into real estate, it gave me a chance to really spend time with him. But it gave me time to start getting involved in the community and to get involved in the schools. And it's so important to be able to have those conversations with teachers, with students, with community members, and really share in the experiences and learn and grow from them, and be able to share everyone's experiences to make everyone in a collaborative environment that much better. So having the time and the freedom was really my tipping point to dedicate them to kids.
Stephanie Malm.
For me, very briefly, so back in 1998, St. Peter was devastated by a tornado. And I saw this community come together to rebuild. And that is when I decided that this is what I am meant to do. And then I had my daughter, and she is my inspiration to do better. And I've always been a part of public service, and this is my way of giving back. I am nothing without the community. I am nothing without my children. I've never shied away from adversity, and I want to play an active role in improving our community. Plus, timing right now is fantastic. I'm just finishing my MBA, and I can just jump right into this. So who needs sleep anyway? So I'm very excited about this opportunity.
Brian Davis.
In 1957, my aunt was one of 9 children desegregated Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas. She was escorted in by the 101st Airborne, had to be escorted by military. I asked my grandfather once, why would he put his child at risk like that? And he said, because somebody had to. I've never forgotten that. So a couple years back, I talked to parents, many parents over a basketball game in our gym, and they were telling me about things like bullying, or their kids weren't doing so well. Another parent that left the district because she didn't feel like her child was being treated fairly. I told my wife 2 years ago, I said, when it comes around 2019, I'm running. My son's graduated. My daughter's a sophomore now. I'll be honest, I have more time than I did then. And when I dropped off my son at school, my son and my daughter pulled me aside and said, good luck. It's your turn now. So I'm going to go for it.
Thank you, candidates. Here's the next question. And we'll start with you, Brian Davis, since you already have the mic, and followed by Lisa Hedin. What skills or traits do you possess that will allow you to contribute to the effective operation of the school board as a whole? What skills or traits do you possess that will allow you to contribute to the effective operation of the school board as a whole?
That's a great question. As I indicated in my opening, my son originally was in St. Paul Schools, Highland Park Elementary. It's an international baccalaureate school. I sat on site council for that school. Think of it as a small version of a school board for one school. St. Paul Schools has a slightly different system than we use. In that role, I was involved in everything from facilities management to curriculum to disciplinary pieces, all those types of things you would normally see. So I kind of got my training from the ground up in doing those types of things. I am now in a situation where I work with children and parents each and every day. In much the same way, we have to have curriculum, we have to have ideas, we have to have ways of dealing with discipline, we have to have ways of helping them grow, mature, and develop into the kind of adults and individuals we want, who we know can then give back to the Hastings community. We want to keep them here. We want to make sure they're here and they're thriving, though. And I feel I've got those skill sets developed over years to do that.
Lisa Hedin, followed by Stephanie Malm.
Thank you. So I'm going to divide that into a skills answer and a traits answer. My skills answer has been built in my profession as a civil engineer all the way up through senior administrator with the Department of Defense, St. Paul District Corps of Engineers, where I managed multiple million-dollar projects, engaging multiple levels of government, and a lot of public engagement, budgeting, short-term and long-term, and I was very successful in those positions. Much more recently, my last 8 years on the board have taught me what this job entails. And I have grown every year in my ability to understand it and to be successful at it. And as we talked about with the 2 or 3 things to be proud of in our district, the sense is that our district is in good shape, and I have been participating in that for the last 3 years. The traits or attributes that I have: I'm level-headed, I'm a fact-based decision maker, I'm approachable, I'm out in the community, active in multiple places, easy to get a hold of, relatively easy to talk to, at least I think so. And I feel like I'm a good listener, like I can understand the heart of what a person is trying to say.
Stephanie Malm, followed by Melanie Peters.
Lisa, I feel like we're right on track with each other. So I wanted us to, right. So fact-based decision-making. I work in the legal field and have for many years. So I make decisions primarily based on facts and taking into consideration the fundamental needs of everybody to come to the best solution. I believe in collaborative efforts and team building. So that is something that I can definitely bring to the table. I'm a leader. I know that I can lead and I can manage. Furthermore, my philosophy has always been about transparency and communication, and my values, just to name a few, are accountability, integrity, and ethics, all of which are necessary characteristics for a person in my occupation and as a board member. My desire to play an active role in the community on issues that are important to everyone is just one reason why I did decide to run.
Melanie Peters, followed by Jessica Gelhar.
Some of the skills and traits that come to the front of my mind is just the need for a school board member to be able to collaborate with others. Decisions have to be made together. It's not one person making a decision. And I have a lot of experience collaborating both in my work environment as well as other boards that I've served on in Hastings and, well, with the HYA board, and then also a career tech ed board that I've served on in the past. I also think that my experience as an educator does come into play. I was at one of the work sessions, and it was about bathrooms in the middle school. And there were so many questions that I wanted to ask about the bathrooms in the middle school, because I think I could envision what it really is like to have 100 students going to use the bathrooms, and what that might, what that might mean. And
Jessica Gilhar, followed by Becky Beisel.
So when I had, is that on? Am I, okay. I had made a reference earlier that I'm energized by creating connections with people. So that I think is one thing, is creating intentional connections with those in our community, our students, our teachers, our parents. And communication is really a skill that I've always worked to refine. I've communicated with a variety of different audiences in many different forums. My experience in my professional career, as I mentioned earlier, it's a multifaceted, complex world that I have to make decisions with quickly while understanding the impacts and the values that it's going to provide. And ultimately, it needs to be a positive outcome for our customers, both internally as well as externally. So I think there's a lot of those components that I can bring to the table within the board. And I can't stress enough the collaborative nature of this work, right? Everyone who sits on the board needs to have the ability to work with one another to make decisions. And I pride myself on listening and making sure that I'm hearing what it is they're saying. And sometimes we're going to have to compromise, and that's okay, because at the end of the day, we need to absolutely work together to do what's in the best interest of the district. And last but not least is ensuring that we're transparent. I'm done. I'm sticking to my time.
Thank you for observing the stop sign. Becky Beisel, followed by Andrew Trimbath.
As a registered nurse, I deal with decision making, quick on my feet every single day, making decisions for people's lives. Sometimes they don't even know that I'm doing it. I work positively with family members, doctors, social workers, decision making, one-on-one with everybody as a team. We work collaboratively together. Sometimes I have to work on my own. Sometimes we work together as a team. I feel that it's very valuable that you can come together and work together as a team, and also that you can have your own thoughts and bring them to the team and work together. I'm a passionate, strong, dedicated, determined person, so I think that's a very good value that I can bring to the board. I am good with communicating with others, and I'm open and honest, and I like to learn from people, and that's exciting to learn listening to everybody and learn their traits and skills too, so that we can all work together collaboratively as a team.
Andrew Trimbath, followed by Robert Hallberg.
So as I mentioned in my opening, I've been in the public sector for quite a while now. And throughout my time there, I've been heavily involved in budgeting, being a positive steward of the taxpayer's dollar, making sure that it's being spent wisely and ethically and professionally. Along with that, I've had planned mass-scale trainings for over 1,000 employees, multiple different times, and written and designed curriculum for large-scale staff involvement. Those are my skills, really. But when I think about my traits, I think my strongest one is I'm a very naturally curious person. I'm always going to ask questions and try to figure everything else out. I tend not to take things at face value. I want to know where they're coming from. I want to know the why and the background to what it is. And I also think I'm very good at building relationships with people. I think I can sit down with anyone, and if you give me 15 minutes, I will find a common ground, and we will have something to talk about. It might be the 1998 Vikings. It might be sewing that my mom does. I don't know what it's going to be, but we'll find something.
Robert Hallberg.
Thank you. Having worked for so many years in the restaurant business, overseeing multiple multi-million-dollar restaurants, I have a really good sense of budgeting. I have a sense of I wore many hats in those days as teacher, leader, human resources, building and management, and it really brought the best of me out. I'm a natural, people gravitate usually to me, much like Andrew was saying, give me a couple minutes and we'll find something to talk about, and we'll talk about it for an hour. The biggest reason why, though, I'm running for the board is I want to know why things are done. I want to ask the question. Maybe the question's already been asked, but I didn't hear the question, so I'm going to ask again. And then I want to communicate to everyone around me the reasons why we do things. I think transparency is absolutely critical and should be at the forefront of everything that we do.
Thank you, candidates. Here's the next question, and for that, we will start with Jessica Gelhar and then followed by Robert Hallberg. As you look for a new superintendent, what characteristics of the previous superintendent would you look for, and what additional traits would be desirable?
Yeah, so for me, I know a lot of folks have kind of touched on the budgeting piece, and I think he did an excellent job at keeping that in check and also leaving allotments for things that maybe were unexpected so that we didn't go into the deficit, right? So I think he really did a good job there, and I would want to ensure we stayed on that trajectory. Additionally, I think he was committed and he was passionate about those around him, and he had a general willingness for our students and teachers' success. So obviously we would want to ensure that carries through. I'd really like to see somebody who is in the community, who's a member of those around us, so that they're truly entrenched and they can feel and have those conversations outside of the space in which they work, because I think that provides a different dynamic. And I also want somebody who's looking forward thinking in all aspects, not just the budgeting piece, but how can we get ahead in the technology components? How can we focus more on building those trades for our students? How can we ensure that we have the resources for mental and emotional health? But those are some, and I gotta stop.
Robert Hallberg, followed by Lisa Hedin.
You know, much like Jessica said, Superintendent Collins did an incredible job when he came in, taking us from a horrible position financially into a very strong financial position. And I think the next superintendent has to have those traits as well. Understand that the school board and the district is a business. But at the same time, I really want someone that understands the student-centered side of it, that is in the classrooms, that's with the teachers, trying to understand what can we do to make their lives better. Like Jessica said, I'm a firm believer that the person that runs the school should be here in town. I remember growing up, and Ken LaCroix was our superintendent my senior year, and it was fantastic to see Ken at sporting events, choir concerts, whatever the case might be, and to hear from him, hey, great job, Rob. The fact he knew my name blew me away. And I think that is something that I would look for in our next superintendent, someone that has that idea of being present in the lives of the teachers and the students and the community.
Lisa Hedin, followed by Becky Beisel.
Thank you. There are so many characteristics and skills of Tim Collins that I hope that we are fortunate enough to find in our next superintendent. He had a capability and has a capability of seeing a big picture for the district, being aware of upcoming trends, setting us up in a position to be successful, and he's also at the same time very detail-oriented. But the thing that I appreciate about Tim most is it's kids first. It's always kids first. It's always a decision, is this the best decision for students? And then for staff, acknowledging on an annual and multiple times on an annual basis that their families are important and taking care of themselves are important. So those are the characteristics I want to carry forward. I do think that some of the challenges that we see are going to be some changing diversity experiences in our students, and I would like us to be a state, if not regional leader in engagement and inclusion, and I'd like to bring in somebody with that experience.
Becky Beisel, followed by Andrew Trimbath.
I think Superintendent Tim Collins did a fantastic job while he was here. He, like everybody said, brought us out of the financial ruins. What he did during the economy and bringing us out of the red, simply great job to him. Also what he's done in the last few years with the levies and then the Todd Field, simply thank you to Tim Collins. What I'm looking for in a new leader is somebody that's enthusiastic, again, involved in the community, want to be visible, somebody that knows our community, knows the kids, that our kids know who the superintendent is. Again, stay up on the curriculum, continue to ensure that our students and staff are safe inside the schools, and continue to improve our enrollment numbers and visibility within the community.
Andrew Trimbath, followed by Melanie Peters.
So when I think about traits that I would like to hold over from Collins, I think that quite a few of my fellow candidates have already touched on the budgetary aspect of things. We really want to keep that steward of the taxpayer dollar going. But I really want to think more about the different characteristics. And to echo what some of the others said is, we want somebody that's involved in community, heavily involved, and they want to be part of this community. And, that's a great story. Hallberg told about, getting to know a superintendent. That was not an experience while I was in school that I had, and that would have been a really neat experience to have. I also think we need someone that's very positive workplace culture centered, someone that's going to come in and engage our teachers at every level and engage our administration at every level and create that positive workplace culture from the top down, so that our staff are taken care of, so they can take care of our students. And when you look at this decision, and it's really a critical one and the cornerstone of the selection, because I think Collins was here for 17 years.
Melanie Peters, followed by Brian Davis.
One of the things that I really appreciate about our current superintendent is that he would address problems early and directly. I don't think things lingered. They didn't linger. They were brought up, not shying away from issues. And then, of course, the financial position that our school district is in, which may help as we look to find a new superintendent. Some of the things that I would like our new superintendent to have greater consideration of is just looking at our diverse learners and how the changes in our student population will impact our education system. Also, looking at someone who is looking at the holistic sort of matriculation of students. So what is the experience like in elementary school, and how is that connected to middle school, and how is that connected to high school? Sometimes I feel there's a disconnect as students move from school to school. So I'd hope that our
Brian Davis, followed by Stephanie Malm.
Superintendent Collins, to echo a lot of other folks up here on the dais, did a great job with the financials. There's no question about it. He's done an outstanding job. Also, I was very impressed with his forecasting. In terms of forecasting enrollment, even though it was bad news in terms of declining enrollment, his forecast has been spot on in terms of those types of things. He does have a passion for children, which I also appreciate. In terms of someone coming in, I'd like to see someone who's very collaborative with the community, collaborative with parents, the children, teachers, administrators, everybody. Someone that is up on tech types of learning in terms of also STEM. Someone that's a disciplinarian, that's always a strong thing, it helps prevent bullying and the like. And also someone that's willing to partner with our community. Really be a partner with the things that we're trying to accomplish. And finally, someone that's growth-oriented, so we can turn this curve around, get away from where we are in terms of this downward enrollment, and start spiking it back up in the other direction.
Stephanie Malm.
Superintendent Collins came into his position as superintendent when we ran into financial strife. He was able to turn that around, and we're looking good now. What I really like about Superintendent Collins is his ability to communicate. He's an excellent communicator. He seems very involved with the schools, with the educators, and with the board members. What I definitely appreciate about him is his involvement with improvement. So, one of the things with identifying different committees that need to be set up to assist teachers in combating current issues, for example, behavioral plans. So looking forward, what I'd like to see is a superintendent that brings all of everything that Superintendent Collins brought, but somebody that also has, a very clear vision. And I'm done.
The next question, I think we should take a minute and a half for each person to answer this, because maybe you'll see why when you hear the question. There's a lot more here than can be answered in a minute, and probably even a minute and a half. So here's the question, and we'll start with Robert Hallberg, followed by Andrew Trimbath. The question is, what policies will you support to protect the rights and safety of all students, including students of color, immigrant students, non-English speakers, LGBTQ students. I'm not sure you can do that justice in a minute and a half but just because we're limited in time, let's try. Okay, so timers, would you time this for a minute and a half, please? Thank you so much. Okay, starting with Robert Hallberg.
Wow, that's an incredible question. There's a lot to chew on in that. The long and the short of it, everyone deserves to have the right to an education. It doesn't matter where you're from, who you know, what your skin color is, what your sexual orientation is. And I really think that we need to educate not just the students, but the community as well, and make sure that we have the right support systems in place, in-house, for students that feel as though they might be, they're being harassed or they're being bullied upon. And we need to take that seriously and understand that everyone has the right to learn. That's a really incredible question. It's blowing my mind as I'm thinking about the fact that we have to ask that kind of question. That should really be, in this day and age, second nature. And I would support whatever it took to have the diversity in our schools and in our community. Because a diverse community is a strong community. A diverse community is a successful community. Thank you.
Andrew Trimbath, followed by Becky Beisel.
As I mentioned, I'm a naturally curious person. So anytime I see anyone that has a different background or upbringing than I have, I want to know more about them and learn more about them. And I think that natural curiosity is what we need to instill within our students. When we talk about policies, I want to talk less about policy and I want to talk more about culture, our cultures within our school. How are our students, how are our staff, how are our individuals acting or contributing to a positive culture for everyone that's there. Instead of necessarily going after people when we have issues like bullying or things like that, we need to educate and discover why those issues are coming up, because I'm a firm believer that no one's naturally evil or bad or anything like that. So that there's something that's stemming from, and it's usually a lack of knowledge about what's going on. So we need to really push for the individuals, students, and our staff to have a firm grasp of the different diversities and people within our community. As Todd kind of touched on, a diverse community is a strong community. Getting all those different backgrounds and thought processes involved in our community and instilled our community is only going to make us stronger. And Hastings is changing, and that's a good thing. And we need to make sure that our community and our students are educated and prepared for that change, and that we're approaching it with open arms and open hearts.
Becky Beisel, followed by Jessica Gelhar.
I fully support diversity. I think equality for all. I fully support that we educate from the top down. Educate through our district, our community, so that our leaders are teaching our children, the staff, and teaching our children that it's okay. It's okay to be different. It's okay. Ensure safety in these schools as well. I want everybody to know that they're safe in these schools. And if they don't feel safe, we should ensure that we have support systems, counselors, special programs that people can go to, that they feel that it's okay. It's okay to be different. It's okay to be short. It's okay to be part of the LGBT community. It's okay to be who you are. I support any kind of policies, anything that we can do to ensure that the safety for our children and our staff and our community.
Jessica Gelhar, followed by Brian Davis.
So for me, I absolutely support everyone having the ability to be who they are and being able to feel safe in that space. That said, we really need to work to promote individuality and really embrace our differences and not looking at it from the lens of being different, but that's what makes us unique, right? And that's how we can learn. We learn through each other's experiences, we learn through our differences, and if we can see through that lens, which when you think about it as a young child, they don't see the differences that we see, and we foundationally absolutely have to remember that when we look at this. There is a change in demographics, right? When we look at our high school and middle school demographic compared to our elementary education, it's very apparent that there is a difference there. So when we think about that in the big picture, what does success look like in that space? And you're probably like, well, that's a really big question. And it is, but it's one that we absolutely have to think about so that we can put appropriate components in place that will allow us to reach that space of safe environments for our children, promoting the individuality and embracing our differences. Part of that safe environment too is disciplinary action. We need to be strong on disciplinary action if somebody were to do something to somebody that made them feel harm, and it's all interpretation again of that person, and we need to be rigid and stick to what that disciplinary looks like. So those are a few steps, and I would support those policies to promote all of those for people to be themselves.
Brian Davis, followed by Melanie Peters.
One of the things that we have to always make sure of is that we acknowledge the fact that we do look different. Internally, we're all the same, but there are differences. There are differences in cultures. There are differences in how we approach things. It's easy to say, hey, let's just do some diversity training. Diversity training is a very, very big word. It's a very big term. What I'd prefer to see along those lines, and obviously it still has that moniker of diversity training, is conversations happening. You can sit in a room for 8 hours and listen to somebody talk to you and flip through a book, but it's not anything compared to sitting down and actually have life conversations. Where are you from? What do you do? Where are you from? This is for students, administrators, teachers. I think the board can help with that. I think the board can put themselves in a position of saying, hey, each of our teachers, of our students is going to spend time in collaborative think tanks talking to other children and discussing these types of issues and going over these things so they get a better appreciation for each other and where each other come from and who they are. And on the flip side, consequences, outcomes. Counseling, consequences, and outcomes if something does come up. If something does come up with a student and something happens, there needs to be consequences. And rather than doing it in short order, we make sure that it's a board policy across the board, from elementary through high school. Administrators and teachers, here's what you will do if this comes up. Therefore, it's not arbitrary anymore, and it's equal across the board, across all levels of education.
Melanie Peters, followed by Stephanie Malm.
The first policy that I would, consider, or if it's not already in place, is just training on for everyone, teachers, staff, and also volunteers that come into our schools, but training on what it means to be inclusive and inclusive language, making sure that anyone who works with children can recognize signs of when children are feeling bullied or are being left aside for one reason or another. The other policy that I think needs to be in place is a consistent review of participation. And this includes participation in advanced coursework. It would include participation in programming such as athletics, fine arts, activities, which populations of students are engaging in these areas and which populations of students are not. And if it's found that there are groups that are not engaging in the advanced coursework or activities, then a group should be formed, or somehow those problems would need to be addressed, specific measures taken. So kind of having that in place, reviewing participation and taking measures to change or address.
Stephanie Malm, followed by Lisa Hedin.
I am very passionate about this question. In my role at work, we are heavily involved. I'm on the phone with our Equal Opportunity Office almost daily. We really promote diversity, inclusion, equity. A lot of my very best friends fall within those categories. But it goes beyond just policy making. We can throw policy, we can throw training at people, but what we really need to promote is community education. We often see issues where, you know, when there's fear. And how do we overcome that fear? It's through educating. We need to teach compassion. We need to teach acceptance and embrace our differences because, like Mr. Davis had said, we may look different on the outside, but we're still the same people with the same needs to be loved and to be accepted. And that's what we need to do. It goes beyond just a policy. It's a basic human right. And we need to get our community on the same line with that so that we are teaching our future leaders that it's okay to be different.
Lisa Hedin.
Thank you, and I certainly appreciate the extra 30 seconds. So it's very comforting to hear the range of support around the issue of diversity amongst all the candidates at the table. That's a really solid base. What I would like to speak to is that we do have ongoing practices in our district to this point. In the last couple of years, the school board signed on with the City of Hastings on a declaration of inclusion, diversity, and equity, and that it's morphed into what's now called Thrive. With that, the school district took a strong statement in support of this issue, and we've been working with student groups and hearing some really incredible stories. There's policies in place right now around bullying. There's policies in place around equitable treatment. We're moving beyond those policies and into practice. And it's a difficult conversation as we all have to review our personal biases based on the experiences that we had coming up. And we need to continue to do that work. I am also open from a policy perspective. The Minnesota School Board Association has recently adopted a toolkit of policies that were primarily developed to support LGBT students. At this point, Hastings School District has not adopted that toolkit. We have many of similar policies in place, but we have not done a really comprehensive review and made a decision how that fits for us. I would definitely be open to bringing that into our discussion because I think celebrating and moving beyond a discussion of diversity, but about moving it to a discussion of inclusion is where we're at.
Thank you. We have about 10 minutes left till closing remarks, and the question facilitators have basically two important questions to be asked. And I don't think we have a minute and a half for each, so I'm going to tell you the question, which is really in two parts, and we'll just do your best to address either or both parts as you're able to in a short amount of time. Here's the question. What is the role of the specialist, media, art, physical education, and music in our schools? Also, how will you advocate for continued support for extracurricular activities, both athletic and non-athletic? I realize that's two different things, but if they're both important, and so would you try to comment on them both if you can? The role of the specialist, things such as media, art, physical education, and music, and advocating for support, continued support for extracurricular activities, athletic and non-athletic. Could we start with Stephanie Malm, followed by Melanie Peters?
Thank you. I really enjoyed this particular question. I'm a singer. I run. I'm in school right now, finishing my master's. So I call that the AAA. That's arts, academics, and athletics. And I think it's vital to make a well-rounded individual, at least try some of that. So the role of the specialist is to provide a foundation for those particular areas and to really invoke passion in our children to try different areas beyond math and reading and science. Advocating the support for extracurriculars, I'm a huge advocate for that. My kids are in swimming. My son is about to start a robotics class, and so I like to see children encouraged to participate in those. All right.
No. Melanie Peters, followed by Brian Davis.
I'm going to attempt to address both questions. As far as the role of specialists, specialists play a really important role in schools. They help support our students in achieving standards that the classroom teachers aren't able to squeeze into their day. There are standards related to physical education. There are standards related to arts. So they play a vital role in doing that. That's part of the whole education of a child. And as far as advocating for support for extracurricular activities, there's a direct correlation between student involvement and student success. Participating in extracurricular activities is a predictor of students being successful in high school and after high school. It also gives students an opportunity to connect with another supportive adult, and those meaningful connections is what will help our students to be successful in the classroom and beyond.
Brian Davis, followed by Lisa Hedin.
The specialist is critical, absolutely critical for us, because those types of roles are what allow the children to become far more well-rounded. Yes, you can have the academics, but if they have that piece in addition to it, it really rounds them out, and it also gives them some type of diversion from the everyday of math, science, English, and those types of things. My daughter's in show choir, she's in musicals, she's in all that fun stuff. My son was a baseball player and a basketball player. Totally different. He couldn't carry a tune in a bucket. She sings beautifully. So I'm highly supportive of all of these types of things, because I think what it does is it takes these children and rounds them out. You take the sports, you take the music, you take the media, all those things that they're able to do outside of those standard academics, and you've got one heck of a kid that will then become a leader in their environment, in their community, wherever they happen to be. Sports creates leaders. Music creates leaders. There's captains of the show choir. There's captains of the baseball and football teams. All those things create great leaders. So I'm highly supportive of all that, and I think the specialist has a critical role in that.
Lisa Hedin, followed by Andrew Trimbath.
Thank you. I value the role of the specialist very highly, both for the relationships that they create with students. The more adults that we can positively put in a student's life, the better. Melanie's point, it aligns with standards that we are responsible to teach our students as a school district, and it's embedded in our district's mission. Our district's mission talks about raising responsible lifelong learners who possess skills, knowledge, creativity, sense of worth, and ethical values. Those specialists are critical to providing that, as well as extracurricular activities. The 8 years that I've been on the board, we've consistently funded our extracurriculars at a very strong level. And as you might notice, if you ever read the high school announcements, there's constantly new programs being added and new clubs. If a student has an interest, I see outdoor biking and skateboarding is becoming a club. We're looking to support those students and find an engagement back into the school, which does create a stronger learner.
Andrew Trimbath, followed by Jessica Gilhar.
You know, I actually love this question. I think I could probably talk for a lot longer than 1 minute. I know I could. But I think that when we look at these things, these are the activities that build confidences in students that maybe struggle in other areas, and that they can find success and find their strength in these places. Along with that, they're building career skills, whether that's communicating with a coach, which is very similar to someday communicating with your employer, or if it's, you know, just developing skills that maybe someday they will use in the workforce. And it keeps them busy. I think, you know, part of keeping kids on track and in the right place is keeping them busy. And when we talk about advocating for extracurriculars, I can't say how much I push for kids to just be involved in as much as they can. I was in every athletic thing you could imagine. I was not very musically inclined. I tried, but it went poorly. But I mean, I tried tennis. I tried everything. And when I think about it, I really want to make sure that our youth and from the grade school level to the high school level are involved in those activities as much as we can.
Jessica Gelhar, followed by Robert Hallberg.
So I would echo a lot of the same comments that have been made. I mean, the role of the specialist is absolutely critical. I think it's a nice break in the day and provides something for students to look forward to that's outside of that core set of courses that they're doing. It allows them to explore a different area with a different person and build those meaningful relationships. You can't stress enough the importance of building those relationships, trusted relationships within the school. When I think about advocating for continued opportunity within extracurriculars, 110% an advocate. We have to make sure that we're listening to our students as well as our community to first understand what opportunities are out there and what opportunities we might look to incorporate. So hearing about the new programs that are coming in, we have to make sure we have a consistent pulse on what that looks like. Those type of extracurriculars really breed passion in young people, and if they have that passion, even if it's a trying time, it's usually something that keeps going for them. So it's very important that we have that opportunity for all of them.
Robert Hallberg, followed by Becky Beisel.
For me, when I went through school, Lynn Warren was my choir director. And he had such an incredible impact on my life, not only then, but 20 plus years later. Specialists are so important that they help those kids find their niche, whether it be art, whether it be physical education, whatever. They might struggle in the other academics, but in that lane, they help bring out the best in that child. And that's what it should be about. And with the media specialist, not only is it helpful for the kids, but also for the teachers as well, to let them know what the newest technologies are, the newest books might be, so that they can take that information back to their classrooms. As far as extracurricular activities, I was the king of extracurricular activities. There was not a thing that I didn't want to try. And I think it's so important for our children to understand that try something. You don't have to do it for the next 10 years of your life, but try different ideas, try different groups. Like Lisa was saying, there's so many different new groups that are coming out that are absolutely fantastic.
Becky Beisel.
Again, I agree. Specialties play a large role in our children's lives. They let kids be who they are and who they want to be. I always tell my children, try it, see if you like it. You never know until you try it. My boys are very active in sports, but they also have grasped off into different branches. My youngest son, middle son, he tried choir. He loves it. He was singing and dancing for his first choir concert. It's great just to see a different personality come out. My oldest son found art. Who would have thought this athlete who is always sweating, going to meets and matches, playing golf, is a great artist. I think it shapes their minds, thinks outside the box. They are included. They have friends that they didn't know that they could be friends with. It shows that different groups can be friends together in the classroom, outside the classroom, and hopefully lifelong friends.
That's all the time we have for questions. So now we're going to go to your closing remarks for 1 minute each. And for the sake of time, just as we went from Becky down to Andrew, we're going to start with Andrew and go down the line back to Becky. Each of you 1 minute for your closing remarks. Thank you.
Sounds good. Well, I want to once again reiterate thanking everyone for coming today and thanking the organization for hosting this event. What I really want people to go away with, as a candidate, I want them to know that I'm really pushing for a positive workplace culture when we talk about our schools. I'm a firm believer that if we take care of our staff, they're going to take care of our students, and our students are going to have the best experience. I also want to talk about being a professional and ethical steward of the taxpayers' dollar. The taxpayers are looking to us with their money that they've invested in the school district, and we need to make sure that money is used in the best possible way to help grow all of our students. And then I also want to focus on fostering a transparent and trust relationship with our community. I really want to make sure that the school and school board is viewed as part of the organism that is the community and not a separate entity in itself, but just an extension of the whole community itself. And thank you guys again for the invite, and it was great.
Melanie Peters.
Thank you again for being here and asking these questions of us. When I think about what I could contribute to the school board, I think a school board, to be effective, needs to be a collaboration of a diversity of voices. And when you look up at us, it's not a vote for one person. You're voting for a team that will work together. And I think that I can be a valuable member of that team, not just as an educator, but also as someone who has a strong understanding of the role of STEM in our community and in our schools, but also with the role of STEM in the workplace. I've had the opportunity to collaborate with different STEM organizations and corporations to create and write curriculum that's used at a national level. And I just think that that's an important vision that we need for our district too.
Stephanie Malm.
My philosophy has always been transparency, integrity, and communication, and that is what I can bring to this team. My desire to play an active role in the community on issues that are important to everyone is just one reason why I decided to run for school board. I'm an advocate for our students who don't have a choice of where they get to live or what school they get to go to. I'm an advocate for educators who are often overburdened with large classrooms and limited resources. And I'm an advocate for the community, the taxpayer, and our leaders in this team to ensure the checks and balances of our decisions are ethical and legal and clearly communicated. Thank you for everybody who came out tonight. I recognize a lot of your faces, and your support means the world to me. I can't do this without you. Your support is why this town will thrive and why I want to be a voice for you and the public schools.
Lisa Hedin.
Thank you again to the Dakota County League of Women Voters and the American Association of University Women here in Hastings for hosting this forum. Thank you to Hastings Community Television for filming it so that it'll be available to people who aren't able to be here tonight. And thanks to everybody in the audience, live and virtual, for taking the time and giving your interest to this important election and learning about the candidates for school board. In my time on the board, I've shown myself to be hardworking, level-headed, and responsible. I've demonstrated a willingness to do the work that's necessary to be a successful school board member. I prepare for meetings. I work collaboratively with other members of the board and staff. I'm accessible to staff and to community members. I'm frequently in the buildings, either as a sub, a volunteer, or on site visits on behalf of the board. My focus is on what's best for all students, not just a small group and not just my own kids. I carry myself in a professional, respectful, and approachable manner, and I believe I've been a valuable asset to District 200 as a school board member, and I would ask for your support in having another term.
Robert Hallberg.
Thank you very much to the League of Women Voters, Dakota County, and the AAUW, HCTV, and thank you to all the other candidates. This is not easy. This is a very important election, and it's incredible to hear so many outstanding voices and so many great ideas. And that's what this is all about, is coming together with ideas, with a plan, and executing that plan for the good of everyone. It's so incredible to see so many familiar faces out here that I've known for so many years, and to see that you're just as passionate now as you were back then when I was in high school. And that's what I want to be. I want to be that community liaison. I want to be the one that listens to the people, that encourages people to come to the meetings, to voice your opinions. I want to be there for the teachers. I want to help support them in every way I can, because we ask them to do the most important job in the world, and that is to teach our kids and prepare them for the future. Thank you.
Jessica Gelhar.
I echo the same thanks as everybody has already shared. It's been an absolute pleasure hearing from everybody that's up here. So thank you all for that. As I mentioned earlier, I'm energized by connection. I want to be that person that continues to branch out and build relationships within our community, with our children, listen to our staff, hear their challenges, and take that feedback into consideration for moving forward. Collaboration is key. You've heard that a lot up here today. And I feel that I approach every scenario with a collaborative mindset. I mentioned earlier, we have to compromise, and that's part of collaborating, right, is working together to understand perspectives and views to come up with a suitable resolution for everybody. I understand the importance of listening to people, to understand their experience, and then evaluating what we can do about it to make a difference. And I also feel that I have a keen ability to see that big picture view, how what we do today absolutely influences tomorrow, and getting back to the basics of our children, knowing all of the influences that are out there is one thing that is also very important to me.
Brian Davis.
You know, the world has changed a great deal since we were children, and naturally Hastings has changed as well. The demographics are shifting, families are being pulled in many different directions. There's a lot on our plates. I want to be a part of a solution that allows educators, administrators, parents, and the school board to work as partners to give our children every possible opportunity at greatness, because they can be great. This town is great. I like your vote so I can represent you, the parents, because you're the most important. We can build bridges between everyone that impacts our children's education, teachers, principals, school board, families. We need to build bridges amongst all those groups so they can all come together. My door would always be open. I'm an open-minded person. I'm always willing to listen to anything. And more importantly than that, I'm not afraid of anyone. Anybody that knows me knows that I will vote the opposite of 6 other people and have no problem with it. Ready to do the right thing.
Becky Beisel.
First and foremost, I would like to thank everyone for taking time out of your busy schedules and being here tonight. I truly appreciate you taking interest in myself as well as all the other candidates here tonight. Why vote for me? As a nurse, I'm always someone's advocate. I want to be your voice, your advocate. I want to be available to you, interact positively, and be involved, accessible, and visible. I will work collaboratively with the teachers, staff, and school board members and learn how we can continue to strengthen our education for our children and the future children of the Hastings School District. I care about our community, the staff, and most of all, our children. I am committed to working together with the school board to make sure we maintain fiscal responsibility within our district, keeping our children and staff safe in our schools, looking at our enrollment numbers within the district, and keeping our curriculum up to date are other priorities of mine. I will dedicate myself to working hard, communicating, and contributing effectively as a member of Hastings Independent School District 200. Together we can create a strong district and community.
I have just a couple of thank yous. Thank you to the candidates for participating tonight and for participating in the democratic process by running for office. Let's give the candidates a big hand. Thank you to everyone who volunteered and made this forum happen. And I ask you all to remember to vote on Tuesday, November 5th, or any time before then, by no excuse absentee ballot. That concludes the forum. Thank you for coming.